Oh my gosh. Starting off strong.
I don't know how to start it because I was just talking to you.
I know. And we talk all day.
Yeah.
But this episode of the Bookly podcast, is going to be all over the place. And I'm going to apologize in advance to people. But I made some promises I need to cash right now. I don't know. What's that saying? Checks need to be I don't know. Dude, there's some saying about that. Basically meaning that I have to do what I said and follow through. But at the same time, I really wanted to do a wrap-up episode. So we're going to kind of combine the two. And we're going to see how this goes. Because I think it's going to go all right. And you have had your doubts all day.
Seems unorganized.
Oh, it's definitely unorganized. We're flying by the seat of our pants here. That's a saying that I actually can get right. But I did say that I was going to drop a bonus episode with All the Lonely People, and I didn't want to skip it because I loved this book so much that I had to at least dive into it. I didn't want to just skip it and be like, oh, I read it, but there's no episode about it. So we're going to do like an abridged episode about All the Lonely People. And then if you would like to like maybe skip that for any reason, I don't know why you would skip it, but if you want to skip that part, then the second half of this episode is going to be a 2023 recap. And we're going to talk a little bit about 2024 goals as well as kind of the structure that we're going to be moving forward with. So if you want to basically just hear our 2023 recap that has kind of, we took a survey of other people's favorite books, suggestions, different things like that as I knock your drink over. And just a couple other survey questions that we'll be going over. And then we'll also both be talking about some of our favorite books that we read this year. Then go ahead and skip about halfway through this episode and see if we're there yet. Otherwise, the first half is going to be All the Lonely People. And one of the suggestions that we'll kind of go over in the suggestion section is going to be something that I'm going to do right now. And it is a brief back the book or Goodreads overview of the book that we're talking about so that people maybe who haven't heard of the book or have never read the book have a little bit of an idea what we're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and read the back of the book for All the Lonely People. And it says, in weekly phone calls to his daughter from Australia, widower Hubert Bird paints a picture of his perfect retirement in London, packed with fun, friendship, and fulfillment. But it's a lie. In reality, Hubert's days are the same, dragging on without a single soul seeing him, until his daughter says that she is coming for a visit. It's good news that turns out to be the worst news ever, news that will force him again out into the world that made him suffer for being a black immigrant from Jamaica, the same world he has long since turned his back on. Now Hubert faces a seemingly impossible task to make his real life resemble his fake life before the truth comes out. By turns, a funny and moving. By turns? Is that really what it says?
Yes.
By turns, a funny and moving meditation on love, race, old age, and friendship. All the Lonely People is an uplifting reminder of the power of ordinary people to make an extraordinary difference. I think that was a good summary of the book. I don't know. Yeah. I kind of don't think it was, but I didn't write the back, so I can't say anything. First off, your thoughts on this book?
I love that book.
You loved All the Lonely People? Would you say, I think you've told me before, but it's one of your favorite books.
Yeah, it's up there. Top 10, I think, for sure.
Top 10?
Yeah.
I loved this book, and I might have to revisit my top 5 for the year. I might have to like sneak this one in here. I kind of forgot that I read this one because I just went over all of the episode counts when I put my list together, and I forgot that this hadn't been an episode yet. So this may sneak in there. But if it is not in my top 5, it is in my top 6. Favorite books that I've read this year. All the Lonely People was amazing. For anybody who likes a happy story, likes to feel good, then read this book.
It's also a little sad too, though.
I think most good books are also sad. I think that's
that's when you were like, I want to read happy books now. Like, the best books are a little sad.
Yeah. Because I don't think you can really, I mean, it's that whole like, do you really know good if you've never known evil? Or, you know what I mean? Do you know success if you've never had hardship? And I think that that's kind of something in books too. I don't think you can really have a really happy book unless there's also kind of that sadness element to it. And there definitely is. Like it says, it is about a old man who has immigrated to London from Jamaica back in, 50s probably. I don't know. I think the first then chapter is, it should, 58. So he immigrates to London in 1958. As you can imagine, it's probably not the most friendly racially. And so there's a lot of that, a lot of his hardships. There's obviously, it says right in the beginning, he's a widower, he loses his wife. So there is sadness to the book, but overall, by the end of the book, you just feel all good, all warm and fuzzy inside.
It's very tender.
Yeah, no, I absolutely loved it. It was written kind of interesting. I don't know. I personally have never read a book like this in that it bounces between two timelines perfectly. So it doesn't, like I've read books that have like mixed timelines and you kind of jump all over the place. But this one, every chapter is called Now and Then. And that's it, just bounces back. Chapter 1 is now, chapter 2 is then, chapter 3 is now, chapter 4 is then, chapter 5 is now. And it just goes back and forth between basically the start of his immigration to London, and then the now chapters start with him talking to his daughter post, his wife dying and everything like that, when he comes up with this fictional story of having all of these friends, and in actuality, he's actually a very lonely person. So I thought I was going to hate that. I honestly did. I started this book and I was like, ugh, I hate jumpy timelines, but I felt like it did a good job. I don't know. Do you like jumpy timeline books?
If they're done well, they can give you like a really accurate description of a character, like like their past and their present. And the past kind of helps explain some of their present behavior, I think. But it has to be done well, and I don't know what the secret is. I think also sometimes, like if it's done right, it makes you want to keep reading because you're like, you leave at a spot at the now chapter, you're like, oh, okay, I need to know what happens, so I need to finish the then chapter, and so I have to read 2 more chapters instead of 1 more chapter.
Yeah, I could see that. The cliffhangers are a little bit harder to overcome because there's a whole chapter in between the two of them. That makes sense. Yeah, I felt like it was done well. I felt like, I don't know, I feel like you have to be a pretty good writer to do that too, because you have to give enough information in the past in order to make the present story make sense. But you don't want to give too much information away from the past that the present story doesn't have any cliffhangers. Like there has to be cliffhangers on both sides. And I feel like this story did a very good job of developing both stories, like, parallel to each other without giving away too much information in either story.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, I like it when it's the same character. Like, so it's his story the whole time. It was Hubert's story the whole time. A super popular trend in like historical fictions, especially World War II historical fictions, is it's like different people. They'll do like a World War II, like that time period, and then like a present day story. And I usually hate the present day. Like their troubles just seem like so like nothing compared to like the World War II storyline. It's usually like their grandma or something. And so I don't always love that. It has been done well. Like a couple books, like All the Things We Cannot Say is the first one that comes to mind. That one I feel like is done super well. But I think with this one, because it was the same character and it was really giving you his whole life story, I think that I really liked it.
Yeah, I liked it. I felt like, like I said, I felt like the stories progressed equally and also didn't give anything away. So both stories were equally interesting as they progressed. So it's a balancing act, and I felt like the author did a very good job with it. I never once felt like one story took over the other story or vice versa. I was equally invested in both stories. Maybe that is because it was the same character.
Yeah.
So this story, basically, in case the back was really confusing, which I think it is, not a big fan of the back of this book. But he invents 3 friends because he talks to his daughter on the phone, and she's in Australia. And she's coming to visit. She surprises him. She hasn't been visiting in a long time, and he's old and lonely. And he invents 3 friends that he's been telling her for all these years that he has these best friends, Dottie, Dennis, and Harvey. And his daughter feels good because at least her dad has Dottie, Dennis, and Harvey because he has no one else in his life. And then all of that comes crashing down because now he has to basically invent Dottie, Dennis, and Harvey. And he kind of steps out of his shell for the first time to try to...
Because she's coming to visit. Did you say that?
Yeah, because she's coming to visit.
Okay,
and
sorry,
he doesn't want to disappoint her that he's been lying. So he's like, crap, I got to go find myself a Dottie, Dennis, and Harvey that can be my friends when my daughter's coming. So in case the back of the book was confusing, that's ultimately the story. And I think it's a pretty funny story. Like the premise seems kind of quirky, but I felt like it worked really well in that it was a good premise to get him moving out of his shell as like a character, like a motivation. And I don't know. He was so lonely before going out of his way to like find these individuals. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I just felt like, I don't know. I felt like it was a believable situation in that he would go out and try to find people in that way. And it led to a really fun story. I don't know. I'm rambling now. That was terrible. But the idea eventually comes up between him and his first friend that he makes that they're going to solve loneliness for everybody in their city. And the premise of their group, the solve loneliness in, I can't remember the name of the city, but solve loneliness in their city, they say that loneliness kills more people than cancer. It's kind of like their slogan. Do you think loneliness is really that big of an epidemic? Because this book is called All the Lonely People. And again, Hubert himself, very lonely individual. Forced to step out of his shell, and then decides that he's going to help other people step out of their shells as well. Is it really that big of a problem?
So I don't think it's as obviously detrimental as cancer, like as what's the word I'm looking for?
Destructive?
Yeah, as destructive as cancer. But I do think it is farther reaching than cancer. Like more people are lonely than have cancer, obviously. I do think that we are all a little bit lonely.
Yeah.
I mean, this book has so many examples of people who are lonely in different ways. There are people who have lost spouses. His first friend, Ashley, that that he makes, and they start this together.
They're neighbors.
Yeah, they're neighbors. She's a new mom, a single mom. Her boyfriend left her in a new place, so she's kind of lonely in motherhood. And there's a bunch of different stories.
His friend Gus is lonely because he never got married.
Yeah.
And he just kind of aged out of that single life and then just never had a family.
Yeah.
And
there's lots of people who are, it's been
there's
2
people,
years.
There's people who are divorced. There are people
Yeah.
who have lost spouses. There are people whose
kids have grown up.
Yeah, whose kids have grown up and they're kind of in their own world.
People who have just like immigrated.
Yeah, there are a lot of immigrants in the story as well. People who don't have families or whose families are, in far off lands. It's like the cupcake guy. I can't remember his name, but he's from like Latvia or something like that. And his whole family still lives in Latvia and he's shipping money home. He came to London to find work and he feels lonely. Like there's just various stages of life. And it kind of shows, like you said, that everybody is lonely.
And one part that I really like that shows a loneliness that isn't talked about a lot is there's in one of the then chapters, it talks about how Hubert and Joyce, his wife Joyce, are super busy just with kids and life. Like their kids are teenagers and just busy. And Hubert starts getting close to this woman at work and she like invites him over when her kids are gone and he like thinks about it. And at first I hated it. I was like, no, like that's not Hubert's character because he's like such a good man and he loves his wife. Like that's a huge theme of how much he loves his wife the whole book. And so it made me kind of mad at first, like that he would even think about it. But then I kind of appreciated it because it shows that you can be, even when everything looks great, you're married, you have kids, you have people in your life, you can still be lonely. You can still be lonely in a marriage, even if it's a good marriage. Like there are times when we're super busy and just, busy with work, busy with kids, just busy in our own stuff, and we're just like not connecting and not focusing on each other, and it feels really lonely.
Yeah.
Like it definitely happens a lot.
Yeah.
And so I did like that part. It shows another loneliness that maybe we don't think about.
Yeah.
And I cut you off.
No, keep going.
Just why I like this book so much is probably the time in my life that I read it. So I read it when we were still pretty new here.
In Idaho?
Yeah, I think we've been here for almost a year.
Okay.
And we had a 1-year-old, and I didn't have like any friends, and I was so lonely. Like I didn't talk to anybody from Utah, really. Like none of our family, like I don't know, I just like didn't. I think our book club was like my book club with your mom and sisters was the only like interaction I had with adults besides you and like my mom who lives here, which like my mom's always been my best friend, but I didn't really have anyone in the same stage of life as me, and I was super lonely.
Yeah.
I just hung out with this 1-year-old all day who's, mean to me.
She is mean.
No, she's the best, but 1-year-olds are mean because they're pretty angry. But so this book just really, I felt seen. Like I wasn't being dramatic about how sad I was.
Yeah, and how loneliness kind of creeps into your life.
Yeah. And it also really inspired me. Actually, I rarely take action from books. I like even self-help books, I read them and I'm like pumped. I'm like, all right, I'm going to like do all this. And then the next day I couldn't tell you one thing from like that I said I was going to do. But this book, it taught me that you have to like you have to take the initiative and you have to get out of your shell and your routines and you have to invite people. And so I like asked a girl from my ballet class because I had been going to an adult ballet class, but I didn't talk to anybody there. Like everybody had been going for years and they were all friends already. And so I was way younger than everybody. So like no one really like talked to me and I didn't talk to anybody. It was just as much my fault. But there was another girl there. She's older than me, but we had girls the same age. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask her if she wants to have a play date. And I did. And now she's like my best friend.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I love that story because it kind of goes back to, what we can learn from even fiction books, and how fiction books and how stories can inspire us. Like it doesn't have to be a self-help book. I'm in the same boat. Anybody who listened to my episode this past week, the 12 Rules for Life episode, that by the end of the book, I was basically saying that I'm not a self-help book kind of person. It wasn't the most enjoyable book for me. I always thought it would be because I'm kind of like a go-getter individual. So I'm like, you know what? Like that's what I need. I need more people telling me just to go for it.
Well, I feel like most self-help doesn't even do that. It just points out all the problems.
Yeah.
It's like every self-help book I've read. It's like, this is what's wrong with you.
Yeah, this is what you're doing wrong.
Yes. Like every parenting book I've read is like that.
Yeah, parenting books are the worst.
And yeah, then I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, that's the worst. But this book is a very good example of a book that can like tell you a story. And then like you said, it can inspire you to take action and solve kind of the similar problems that the main protagonist of the book does as well. So basically this committee to solve loneliness in, it's going to kill me that I don't know that name, but whatever city it is, you can find it real quick. I want to say Brighton, but it's not Brighton. Brighton's the place with the Ferris wheel.
I've been to Brighton.
Yeah. But yeah, they go to solve loneliness. And basically what comes down to like, you still have to go out and do things. Like even the main character, Hubert, throughout the entire book, has to kind of face his fears multiple times throughout the book and go and kind of make that first effort with his old friend Gus, he has to be the one to kind of mend that bridge and make the effort to go see him when it was, starting any of the different clubs or groups. Like, he was always the one to... Sorry, our kid is crying. So we're going to have to pause this episode real quick.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Sorry about that. Just a quick break to deal with kids at night, which is the greatest. No, but back to what I was saying. He has to go out of his way at every step, and he becomes a completely different person from the start of the book to the end of the book. Actually, I don't even know if he becomes a completely different person.
I was going to say...
He goes back to who he is in the then chapters.
That's what I was going to say.
He is an amazing person in the then chapters. Mm-hmm. And then you see that the death of his wife really changes him. And
other life events.
Yeah, and his son is a homeless drug addict and in and out of rehab, and he's basically given him his whole
stuff with his daughter.
Yeah. Then he loses his way and he becomes lonely. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's important distinction because, like you said, everybody can become lonely and experiences loneliness in different ways and at different times in their lives. Like, I think it is so common to feel lonely, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, or whether it's in your whole life. Like, it doesn't have to be your whole life lonely. Like, you can just feel lonely when you're at your job because you have no friends at work or anything like that. But he turns back to kind of who he was through making that first effort. And I think that was really important, and something really inspiring in the book is that he was able to do that and kind of take those first couple steps and repair all of that. And then he basically becomes the fun-loving person that he was at the beginning of the book. And it was a cool kind of character arc that I really, really liked in the book.
Yeah.
So that's obviously the biggest theme in the book is loneliness and how it affects all of us. And a really powerful example and just a great character that you just love so much. Like, he's just a lovable character.
Your mom has said that he's like one of her favorite characters from a book. She just wants to like go to lunch with him and hang out with him. Yeah.
The other big theme in the book is racism. Because of the time period that it was, it definitely plays a part in all of the then chapters, and especially his marriage, because he does marry a white girl from London, and it kind of also is lonely for her, kind of shows her side of loneliness because her parents don't approve and basically kick her out and disown her. And it definitely plays, so racism definitely plays a really big part in the then chapters, and then a little bit of a smaller role definitely in the now chapters, but it's definitely still like there throughout the whole book. And I don't know how to say this tactfully because I don't want people to get mad at me or anything like that, but I feel like the topic of race is something that we have all heard nonstop about for the last 3 years. Whether it's for good or for bad, on whatever side of the fence you line up on, it has been something that has been at the forefront of all discussions, basically from 2020 on, maybe even earlier than that, 2018, I like start of Trump, basically 2018 on, it has been nonstop race has always been at the forefront of conversations. And I know, like a lot of people that I talk to and that I listen to on podcasts are kind of burnt out with it. And I don't mean that in like they don't believe that it exists or that it plays a role, but when it's kind of been beaten quite a bit recently. And so to like say, oh, the second biggest topic of this book is race can be a little bit like, oh, I don't want to read. Like it's all around me. Like books are sometimes for an escape. And so like, I don't want to escape into a book that just talks about more and more of the stuff that goes on all around me. However, what I will say is that this was probably one of the most well done books that I've read that covers the topic of race and like prejudice and just overall like hardship from an immigrant, and also not just from like Black immigrants, but from like Eastern European immigrants, from basically the immigrant's perspective into a predominantly white society. I never once felt like it was beating me over the head or that it was like more and more of what everybody's talking about online. It was so well done.
Yeah.
Like it was a real big breath of fresh air to kind of read a book that really made me, you know, sympathize for somebody experiencing racism without having to be like, man, I've heard this story a million times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't a story that gets repeated constantly on social media or anything like that. It was just the 1950s racism story of somebody who it was affected by it, but also didn't let it define them, which was, in my opinion, like a beautiful story of somebody overcoming that obstacle, because it was obviously an obstacle in his life.
Yeah, I thought that too.
So those are kind of the two biggest themes of the book, and I would not let the racism theme of it either deter you or like make you feel like it's not going to be a good book or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like it's so well done. And it honestly gave me a much deeper appreciation and like perspective on immigrants. You know what I mean? Like, and not that I didn't have one before. I didn't, you know, I don't think racism is a real thing. Like I do think there are definitely racist people out there, and immigrants are at a disadvantage 100%, but this book only deepened that in the best of ways. So
Definitely.
So I would just, I mean, it was just, again, an inspiring story about people with hardships that overcome them. And that's a great story. You know, like not all stories are written like that. A lot of stories nowadays just are hardships. You get squashed like a bug.
Yeah.
And then the character dies and you end up feeling like, oh my gosh, you don't end up feeling any better. You know what I mean? Like I've read a couple stories like that where there's like this arc and you think it's going to end happy, and it does get a little happy, and then something bad happens. And that's where it finishes. Like, oh, no one can have a happy ending. This book is great. And there are twists and turns in this book that I didn't want to talk about on the podcast. So you don't know everything about Hubert and his life. There are definitely some hardships in his life that, you know, I didn't want to talk about that you'll kind of see as you read the book. But ultimately, it's a book that by the end of it, you leave just feeling good. So All the Lonely People, highly, highly recommend it. What would you give this book on a scale of 0 to 5 for both fun and importance?
5 stars, both.
5 stars, both.
10 out of 10.
100% agree. This is, if not in my top 5, and I will review my top 5 list, then it is number 6. Like at the absolute worst that this book did in my year of books, that this is number 6. Hands down, this is one of my favorites. Could not put it down. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So,
Glad
would
you
recommend.
liked it.
All right, so that was All the Lonely People. We finished almost halfway. I wanted to be done at like 30 minutes-ish, and we got there, 28 minutes. I know that's a fast episode on All the Lonely People. If you want...
Stop playing.
I know, sorry. If you want a longer dive into All the Lonely People, just message me and I'll just talk to you about it individually, because we're moving on. We got books to read, stuff to talk about.
Kids to put back to bed.
Kids to put back to bed, always. So, 2023, what a year. Wrapping it up. I can't believe 2023 is over.
I know.
It went by so fast. Yeah. And every year I say this, but I feel like 2024 is going to be a wild year. You know, like we got all sorts of things coming up this year. We got elections coming up this year. I know. It's just going to be the worst. No matter what way you look at it, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. We're just watching. No, and then we got all sorts of just craziness. So if anybody ever needed an escape, it's going to be this year. So this is the year. This is the year for everybody to start picking up reading, because what an escape. There's so many good books out there. I'm so excited. Never thought in a million years that I would say that. But 2023 has been my first year reading consistently. And I can't even say that fully because that started in July. So the last 6 months have been the first time that I've ever read consistently, and I'm really happy. I love reading. So who would have thought? It only took you 7 years to convince me to start reading. But this year, man, I should have tallied it. I think I read like 30-ish books. We'll just say 30. I think it was more like 35 I read this year. A handful of those were rereads. I think like 4 or 5 were rereads. Other than that, let's just say 30 new books this year. That's what I read. We'll just throw it out there. Might be true. How many books did you read this year?
93.
93 books. That is
100. It's my deepest shame.
Your deepest shame. How many did you get last year, 2022?
It was like 115 or something.
Yeah, so you're slacking.
We had one kid who napped.
That's true. We had one kid.
Now we have 2 kids, and they both never ever sleep. So
yeah, so that's great. It's been an awesome year, in case you can't tell. So you didn't get 2 a week, but that's okay. Slacker. We wanted to go over top 5 favorite books that you read this year. Did you make a list? Mm-hmm. Okay, what are they? Top 5 favorite books.
It's hard to pick 5 out of 93, but...
And it's top 5 favorite books that you read, none of them...
no rereads.
Being rereads. So like, I reread like 5 books this year, and I'm not counting those.
Yeah, I'm not either.
1984 is like my all-time favorite book.
Well, and The Book Thief would definitely be up here, and Frankenstein probably, but
yeah, Frankenstein.
I didn't count them.
Freaking amazing.
Okay, start with number 5.
Yep, start with number 5.
Okay, number 5.
And then I'll tell me. We'll bounce back and forth. 5.
Okay, number 5 is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. It's a thriller.
It's a thriller.
Yeah,
nice.
but it was wild.
A wild thriller.
Wild.
Nice.
Unhinged. But
your favorite kind was it?
Yes.
Was it a wife unhinged on her husband?
You don't know.
Oh, so you don't want to spoil it.
Well, it's called None of This Is True because you don't really know. You don't know who's telling the truth.
Nice. Well, that sounds kind of interesting.
I read it in a day. Our children were slightly ignored. They're fine, but
they're both alive.
They're fine.
Nice. So my number 5, I think this year was. It's so hard because I want to say All the Lonely People. Yeah, my 5 is All the Lonely People. Sorry. 6, I'm going to just get... My special consideration was going to be Shoe Dog. I honestly loved Shoe Dog. Shoe Dog would have been coming in at number 5 until I forgot about this book. This book is going to be number 5. All the Lonely People, 5th favorite book that I've read this year. Highly recommend it. 6th would have been Shoe Dog. Sorry, Nike. All right, number 4.
Number 4 is The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. That is the Thursday Murder Club. If you read my Goodreads review, it says, "Why am I crying over a murder mystery?" Because he just dealt with some big issues in this book, just very well, just very gracefully, and I was crying because I love these characters, and they're old, so some people don't make
spoil
it.
We made an episode already.
Well, I won't say which one, but
I know. Well, that book's not even on next year's list, so.
But it was the 4th one, so you'd have a
while.
And they're just hilarious, and he's getting way better at writing the mystery. It's like way more.
It is fun when you can kind of see authors get better.
Yeah, definitely. He's gotten better. And I'm sad because he's taking a break from the series to start another one. So I'm going to miss them.
But you'll have a whole nother series to read. Yeah, and he'll be a better writer to start off.
That's true. But yeah, that one was good.
All right. My number 4 is The Green Mile. And this is not the last time that you'll see Stephen King. For anybody who listened to my Stephen King episode, Stephen King shocked me with how much I loved his books. I don't know what it is, but it was so good. And I'll preface that also by saying I have never seen the movie The Green Mile, so this was all new to me. I have talked to people who have also read the book and seen the movie. They say that it is very, 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 very similar. So if you've seen the movie, maybe the book's not going to be mind-blowing to you. But for somebody who's never seen the movie, the book was mind-blowing. Loved The Green Mile. Super, super good. Yeah, it was so good. And if you haven't listened to my Stephen King episode, I'm going to plug it now, and I'll plug it again when I get higher up on this list. So, number 3.
Number 3 is Bluebird by Sharon Cameron. It was a World War II historical fiction. One of those usually ends up on my top list.
Yeah.
It just stood out to me. Okay. Sometimes the stories get a little repetitive. Yeah. But this one was unique.
Okay. A unique perspective on World War II fiction.
And have a unique story.
That's good because I think the repetitive, like, there are a million World War II historical fiction books. Like, when doing my research for what I wanted to read next year, it was like, I mean, there were so many.
Yeah.
So, that's good.
I really like that one.
All right. Coming in at number 3 for me is going to be Project Hail Mary. I know you just finished this book today, but for anybody who's known me for a really long time, not a fan of space. You know, like,
it's scary.
I have friends who are like, send me to space. Like, shoot me up there. I will be the first to colonize Mars. And my response has always been, you could not pay me to go to space. Like, I have no desire to go to space whatsoever. However, this book was one of my favorite. It is my favorite space book I've ever read. Small list, but my favorite space book I've ever read. And the premise of the book was so cool. Like, astrophage and Talmeba, and just the idea of like a bacteria eating the sun, like, so unique and such a unique perspective on like a world space disaster, because every space book is basically an asteroid coming to hit the Earth, or it is aliens. Like, that's
aliens who
want to kill us.
Are killed by water, which is the dumbest thing.
Yeah. Like, those are
have you seen Signs?
No.
That's Signs.
Okay.
Like, let's go to a planet that's mostly water.
Yeah.
That's how they get rid of the aliens, is water.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are usually the two premises. Aliens or asteroids. This one was completely different. Space-eating bacteria. Super, super cool premise. Just really well written. It was funny. I fell in love with all the characters, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. I also really like physics that
was my problem. I think I'm too dumb.
I mean, I'm definitely not a smart person, but
you're good at physics and math.
I was about to say physics and math was my jam.
And my science is more like anatomy and physiology. Not math. I took astrology in college because I thought it'd be cool to go to the planetarium or whatever every class, and I did so bad in that class. Yeah. It's so hard.
Yeah, physics 1 and 2, both of those classes I showed up 4 times in college. No, 3. Wait, 1, 2, 3. 3 times in college for both those classes. Physics 1, I showed up for the first day, and then they said attendance is not mandatory, and the only 2 grades for your entire class is going to be the midterm and the final. Everything else is whatever you want. So I said, see ya at the midterm and see you at the final. Ended up getting an A+ in that an A in that class. Same exact thing with physics 2. I don't know why. It just kind of makes sense. And then I took I was almost a math major in college. I think I had 3 more classes to take as a math major. I could have double majored or whatever. So math and just physics in general, I really do like those subjects. Yeah. And so it was a cool application of subjects that I really do enjoy. And
that was my struggle with it. Yeah. I liked everything else, but I was like, we get it. You're smart. Move on.
Yeah, he's a smart fella.
I am excited for the movie, though.
Yeah, and I'm really excited. Really cool. Yeah, because who is it? Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling is the main character.
That got me through it.
Yeah,
Ryan Gosling.
Oh my gosh. It's going to be so good. So if you want to read a book before the movie comes out, this is a good one to get going on. So, second favorite book you read this year?
I am struggling, which order to put 1 and 2.
All right, we'll say 1 and 2 are basically.
Yes, they might be tied. Okay, we'll go number 2. Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger.
Okay. What's it about?
It's kind of like a coming of age in Minnesota in 1961. It's about a 13-year-old boy named Frank. And then his older sister and his little brother. His dad's a pastor. And then there's kind of like a murder mystery, but it's not like the forefront of the novel. It's hard to explain. It reminded me a lot of To Kill a Mockingbird because his dad reminded me a lot of Atticus, like very calm, very wise. And the boy kind of reminded me of Scout, just like kind of wild. Yeah. Kind of wild, kind of like didn't take anything seriously until kind of learned some hard lessons and really matured throughout the story. And yeah, it's on your list next year and you just have to read it. It's
So that will be a podcast episode for 2023. I've already mapped out the entire year and that is one of them. So Ordinary Grace, we will be reading that next year. Number 2 for me was The Stand by Stephen King. A long book, long book. It's like 1,300-ish pages, I think, or something like that. Maybe 1,100 pages. It's so long, but it is amazing. It's a post-apocalyptic book, and one, I love post-apocalyptic stuff, and then 2, it was just so well told. I loved all the characters. I don't think I've read a book that big, that fast ever. Like I just was glued to it. It is amazing. If you go on Reddit ever and you go to the Stephen King thread and there are questions of what's your favorite book, The Stand is always going to be there. Like it's a top 3 for everybody. The Stand is amazing. Highly, highly recommend it. And if you haven't listened to my Stephen King episode, again, I'm going to plug it one more time. It is one of my more popular.
It's really good.
It's one of my more popular episodes of the podcast. So it's definitely worth a listen to. And if it doesn't convince you to read Stephen King, then I don't know, because it has convinced a lot of my friends to start reading Stephen King. It convinced you.
Oh, I haven't yet.
Yeah, but you're going to. We're doing an episode.
You're making me.
No, because you picked The Green Mile for your book club.
I did next month.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm kind of scared that it's going to be
too much.
Crude.
He is a little crude.
There's some members of book club that might not like that, but we're going to go with it.
Hey, we're going to go with it. You can blame me, false.
We're reading 11/22/63.
Yep.
I'm going to have to hire a babysitter to read that book.
Also an episode of next year's podcast. So that's number 2 for me. Loved it. Number 1, all-time favorite book from last year.
Well, it's tied with number 2, but A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman.
They just made a movie about that.
Yeah. Which is very good, actually. They did a really good job.
And that's called A Man Called
Otto.
So they changed his name, but it's the same thing.
I don't know why.
I don't think
it's like
Otto's
a weird name too.
I was about to say, Otto's not any more popular than Uwe.
Because Frederick Bachman is Swedish. That's why he always writes first in Swedish and they're translated.
Oh, really?
I'm probably saying his name wrong, but
I don't know how else you would say it.
I don't know. Frederick Bach. I don't know.
Oh, I thought you meant Uwe.
Oh no, the author. So I read a couple of his, and he has a very distinct way of writing. It's very quirky, and sometimes I get annoyed with quirky writing, like people who are trying too hard to be quirky.
Hitchhikers.
Yeah, I do not like that book. Yeah. I know Quinn has a hard time with that too. We've talked about it before, like annoyed when they try too hard to be quirky. It's like very popular in young adult books. But he just has this very distinct, quirky, very heartwarming way of writing. Like you were there when I finished this book. Remember we were at my parents watching a football game. I don't know. And I you looked over.
There was a football.
Okay, that's Kate. No, but that's true. Never mind.
The house could have been burning down.
And I was like sobbing. And you guys are like, "Are you okay?" It's like, yeah.
Okay.
It is another lonely old man. And
so it's very similar to all the lonely people.
I love,
You love old people.
And I just love books about people feeling lonely because I
struggle with it.
I struggle with feeling lonely.
Yeah.
I think motherhood does that to you. It's
okay.
very isolating. But yeah, it's so good.
That's also on the list.
So heartwarming and funny and like thought-provoking and just
overall.
Just so good.
Well, that one's on the list for next year. So next year we'll have both of those, Ordinary Grace and A Man Called Uwe, will be on the podcast next year. So we'll do episodes for both of those. My number one book that I read this year, I don't think, if anybody has listened to all of the episodes, which I think is only like 2 or 3 people so far, but there's been a lot of episodes that have come out, so I don't blame anybody for not listening to them all. But The Book Thief was my all-time favorite book that I read this year. It is a top 3 favorite book of all time. I think it goes right after, I think it might go above To Kill a Mockingbird, which is hard because I love To Kill a Mockingbird. But I think it might go 1984, The Kite Runner, The Book Thief. Like, oh my gosh, The Book Thief is so good. Like it's one of those books. Oh, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. It's one of those books that, like, if you struggle with reading and maybe it's something that you have wanted to do, but maybe you just haven't really found a book that kind of grabs your attention, or a book that really makes you feel something like TV used to make me feel all the time and movies make me feel all the time, like that feeling of being really connected to something and really, emotionally connected to something, then pick up The Book Thief. It'll do it for you. I promise. The Book Thief is that good. I can give you that 100% stamp of guarantee. The Book Thief will do that to you. It is a very special book. So I loved The Book Thief so much.
That probably would have been number 1 if we included rereads.
Yeah. It's so good. Liesl Memminger. She's so good. So honestly, the whole Bookly podcast has been 100% worth it by reading that book. Like, I'd do it all again if it would just meant that it would get me to read that one book. So that's how amazing that book is. And I loved that book. So if you have not read it, please go read it. It is so, so good. So that was 2023. 2023 in a wrap. I don't know what other stuff.
Are you going to read people's submissions?
Yeah.
Their favorite books?
Yeah. So we'll read. Oh, yeah. That was one of the questions. 2023, we had some random submissions off of the website. We asked.
AKA Brandon's mom.
Yeah. And siblings. And I think one or two random people. We threw up on the Instagram, which is slowly gaining traction. One of the goals for 2024 is to gain a little bit more traction by making reels, which are the bane of my existence. And
so hard.
And so I've made some, and we'll see if I can follow through with that goal. But favorite books of this year, some people said Gates of Fire, which I think is a World War something, one of the wars. Historical fiction. I think so it's a true story. The Bonds That Make Us Free. I didn't look that one up. I feel bad. Destiny of the Republic.
That one's super good.
Which one's that one?
I think 2 people said it.
No.
Yeah, your mom and Quinn said it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were 2
Lena
Destiny.
picked it for book club. Which I was like, I've never even heard of this guy. It was James Garfield. He was a president. He was shot, and it's just about like him being shot and how he would have lived if it weren't for the doctors and the stuff they did to him, because he was shot in like the belly, but it like missed all his organs, and he could have lived with a bullet in him. People that day, everyone lived with bullets in them from the Civil War. Like,
yeah.
But his doctors because dug around trying to find the bullet and didn't use antiseptic measures, even though it Dr. Lysol? I'm pretty sure that's his name. Yeah, he was trying to get people like to practice those measures. He was like the first to talk about germs and stuff, and everyone was like, no, like this guy's crazy. So they would like bare hand, not wash anything.
Oof.
Yeah. So they killed him. His doctors killed him. And Alexander Bell
Alexander Graham Bell?
Graham Bell, yeah. He like invented a device to try and find the bullet. So he had a part of it. It's crazy.
And it's all true stories?
Oh, yeah. It's nonfiction. It's
That's
just
cool.
about him. Yeah, I didn't know anything about him, and it was fascinating.
Nice. So another book would have been The Giver of Stars.
Oh, that book is so good.
I don't know what that one is.
I need to look up the time.
And then Dumplin'. Do you know what that one is?
Yeah, it's like a girl in a pageant, but I haven't read it, so I can't say exactly what it's about. The Giver of Stars is Depression era in Kentucky. It's historical fiction. It's based on these women who would they were called the Pack Horse Librarians of Kentucky. They would take books up to people who lived in like the mountains, like the people who have like the blue skin who lived up in the mountains. They would take books to them, and yeah, like it's super good.
Wisdom.
It's probably one of my favorites of all time.
Wisdom by Whitney Horning.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I don't know that one. Another one for Ordinary Grace, one for Frankenstein, and then one for Shoe Dog. So, I mean, Shoe Dog was up on my list. So, it was a really good book as well. So, I mean, a lot of good books read this year, I think. I think a couple of them are going to be on the podcast next year. Part of me is thinking I should add Destiny of the Republic.
It was super good, actually.
Maybe I will. Maybe I'll switch that one out for one.
Gave it away.
I know, but...
Spoiler alert, he dies.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, you can look that one up in the history books. I don't think you're spoiling anything. Yeah. And then the other things that I wanted to talk about were stuff that have to do with the podcast. So far with the podcast, I'm trying to think. Most popular episode this year for Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Not mine, I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah. Was the last lecture with Claire.
Yeah, Claire's the best.
Yeah, that one's been the most popular by far. She's been crushing it. We have quite a few views on that one for sure. That one's been doing really, really well. So that's been the most popular on the Spotify side of things and Apple Podcasts. And then on YouTube, it was the Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. But
it's so weird.
I know, because that was like my second episode, and I felt like it was trash. And the editing was bad. Like the sound, I was just doing all sorts of things were bad on that episode. But that one was the most popular episode up until I think tomorrow. The 12 Rules for Life is going to overtake it.
Oh, it was good.
12 Rules for Life is cruising right now. I don't know what it is. YouTube like picked it up and has been showing it to more people because it's like in this time frame since it came out, because we're recording this on Friday and it dropped on Wednesday. So usually from a Wednesday to a Friday, compared to the average, this episode is doing about 8 times better than the average. 8 to 10 times better. So it's like really popping off according to Blackley standards. I wouldn't say it's like popping off, but to Blackley podcast standards, it's popping off right now. So that's been really cool to see. We got 3 or 4 really nice comments today on the podcast on YouTube. Just complete strangers. One person, I mean, they were all 3 really, really nice. Yeah, 3 really different nice individuals all just saying, hey, this has been good, putting out great content, and keep it up. And they're like, 2024 is your year. You're going to be popping off. I'm like, dang, dude, that was like super inspiring. I never in a million years thought that it would actually like pop off like this. Not that it's actually popping off. I mean, it's popping. It's popping in here, but go ahead and mute yourself. You can cough. But it is kind of cool to see strangers reaching out and saying you're doing a good job, because it's a little bit validating. Makes me want to keep going. Makes me excited about the podcast. So, and that's good because we'll see how this next year goes. I'm excited to see how 2024 goes. So that's kind of the recap for 2023. 2024, kind of moving to, I guess, the bidness, as Michael Scott would say, side of the podcast. 2024, we're going to be doing some changes, slight changes, nothing major. But we are going to be moving to release the entire year of books up front. It is going to be released on our Instagram. So if you'd like to see what books we're going to be reading every single week, starting January 3rd is the first Wednesday in 2024, all the way through December 25th, which is the last Wednesday of 2024. Every single week, we have the book picked out. And so if you'd like to read along with the Blackley podcast, that will be posted on our Instagram. It will also be up to date on our website, blackleypodcast.com. And I'm going to try to find a way to put it on and to pin it on YouTube so that anybody who follows us on YouTube will also be able to see what books are going to be coming up throughout the year. So that's going to be one major change. Instead of updating you month to month with the books, you'll be able to see in advance the entire year and read along with the podcast. So that's going to be good. That's one of the feedbacks that I got from a lot of people was, people want to read along, pick books that they really are interested in and read them with me. So that's going to be one of the changes. The other change is, I think, at least for the first couple months of the year, half the episodes are going to be solo episodes and half the episodes are going to be guest episodes. I think that's more a mental health for me side of things. That's the thing I'm stressed about most with the podcast.
Well, you've gotten a lot of feedback that those are better too. So
yeah. My solo episodes, actually, people said that they really like them, which
you should just do them all by yourself.
No, you're going to still be on the podcast. So you're already on one for next month. So you have to read that book.
Long.
Hey, you're the one who showed me the book. So yeah, I think half the episodes are going to be solo. Half the episodes are going to be guest. I'm not going to be like hard fast with that rule where they have to be half and half, but I'm just not going to stress about it as much anymore. If I don't find a guest, I don't find a guest. If later down the year we're blowing up and people are sliding into my DMs to be on the podcast, maybe we'll do more and more guest episodes so that all of the episodes turn it back into being guest episodes. We'll also, take suggestions from listeners to see what you guys would like, but I'm just not going to stress about it as much. It's going to be more about the books and about the content, making sure to provide value and just being consistent and allowing you to read along with me instead of having to find guests every single time and me just frantically searching for anybody and everybody to fill a body in a chair. I'd rather just read the books and enjoy the books, and then come what may, we'll see how we do. So that's going to be one of the other changes for 2024. And then other than that, we're going to be just rocking on social media, right? My Blackley podcast social media gal. So
I think I need a raise.
You need a raise?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, me too. No, so we're going to be a lot more active on the Reels side of things. I know that was another feedback that we got from a lot of viewers, was that we need to be more active on Reels, be more interactive with people. So the first step to that is going to be social media, Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, as much as I hate TikTok.
I don't hate TikTok.
As much as
you hate how much you love TikTok.
Yeah, that's true. It's a guilty pleasure. So that's going to be where we're going to go on that. And then, like I said in the last episode, I am thinking about starting up a Discord so that it can turn more into a book club, like a remote book club where people can connect with other people reading the books every single week. And you can, chat about the book of the week, and people can submit questions and it be a little bit more interactive instead of just on the comments on YouTube. That is definitely not going to happen the first couple months of the year. We're going to try to kind of grow the channel a little bit more first so that we don't start Discord and it just be dead. But that is ultimately where I want to go for 2024. I want to turn this into a little bit more of a book club. I think that's the feedback I'm getting from people. People want to read along and talk more with each other and make it a little bit more friendly. And so I think Discord's going to be the best way to do that. And so hopefully middle of next year, we can launch that and turn this into a full-on discussion with people just reading books, even if you've never read books, or even if you don't even read the book and you just want to ask people questions about books. And this is the only interaction that you get with reading is listening to a podcast about another guy who reads books. That's great. Because at least you're getting some interaction with some stories. Maybe you'll be inspired to read one of these books. Like The Book Thief. Read The Book Thief. It's so dang good. Like, if you haven't read it, just read it. And I think that's it for 2024. I'll be releasing the list, I think, with this episode. I want to do it all because this episode's going to come out on New Year's Eve. And then I think we're just going to drop the list on New Year's Eve for the entire year. So, and also, sorry, we've just been talking about this so much, trying to get this all organized. So sorry if this was rambling. And we have a lot of just housekeeping to get done. On the Instagram, there's now a link tree where if you want to be a guest and you see an episode that's coming out on the list of 2024 books and you're like, man, I want to read this book, or I'd just like to be a guest in this month, you can go see the books that are available in that month. There is a form on the Instagram where you can submit your name and which book you'd like to read and a little bit about yourself. And we can get you scheduled to be a guest on the podcast. So if you are interested, that's how you can go about doing that. If you don't want to be a guest on the podcast, then at least listen. So other than that, you got anything else for 2024?
Nope.
Nothing? You're excited?
You're doing awesome.
What's your goal for books for 2024?
Like number?
Yeah, number.
I don't know.
It's the only thing that matters. Just kidding. It's not. The number doesn't matter. Just find good books.
I'll probably set it at 80.
Set the bar so low. When was the last time you read 80 books? 4 years ago?
I don't know. Maybe I'll try to break 100 next year. I don't know.
Yeah, you gotta set a goal. Goals are supposed to stretch you. They're not supposed to be easy to achieve.
The problem is, I can read that much. There are two little people who say, H no, Mom.
Yeah.
So that's my problem.
Yeah. I think.
And there are people who make me run Instagrams and
That is true.
read 800-page books. So,
but you love me. My goal is 52. It'll be the first time that I'll ever hit 52. So that'll be this next year. We'll see what 2025 holds for us. Maybe we can bump that up a little bit and add some extra episodes. But for right now, we're going to stick with 52 episodes of the podcast next year. Every Wednesday, tune in to the Bookly podcast. There will be a new book. There is going to be one special week for everybody listening. And I am so excited. I've gotten a lot of feedback about this. And it is going to be Valentine's Day. February 14th. Everybody listen up. Everybody tune in. Tell your friends. Tell your significant others. Tell strangers. Olivia is going to be hosting an episode with Nicole, our sister-in-law. And it's going to be a romance novel. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to read it or if I'm going to read a different book and just not go anywhere near that book because I don't know how I feel. I may read it and then submit questions to them that they have to read for the first time on the podcast. That would be kind of fun.
that would be funny.
Where you guys have to read.
I apologize for anything that is said during that episode now.
Yeah, so that's going to be February 14th. I'm super excited about that. If we get good feedback on that, maybe we'll do some bonus episodes. We were thinking maybe like Mother's Day and one other day or something like that, where Olivia can host other episodes, and maybe we'll get other people to host some guest episodes too. But we'll see what we can do. We're gonna test it out. It may be terrible.
Oh my gosh. I think I'm like going through puberty right now. Oh my gosh.
You're muted.
Okay. I think last time we recorded, I was sick too. Oh.
Yeah, kids will do that too.
I know. Oh my gosh.
We've been sick basically straight for like a month and a half.
Yeah.
Granted, we were traveling for a couple weeks there, and then it was, getting into the cold weather, because the cold weather didn't hit here in Idaho till like November. So the cold weather hit, and then we traveled, and it's just been literally nonstop sickness for like 2 months. So it's been the worst. But hopefully you're not sick for February 14th, because I am stoked.
See how bad I freeze.
No. You're just going to get hopped up on some caffeine. You and Nicole are going to go crazy.
I don't know what's going to come out.
I am going to write some questions. So I think I decided I'll read the book.
Good luck.
As awful as that sounds, I'm going to. I'm going to do it. I'm going to read that book. The book is The Bodyguard, which just sounds very, what is that word? Hallmarkish, which I don't know how I feel, but I'm excited. So that's the special episode so far. The only special episode scheduled. Other than that, it's going to be every Wednesday, and that falls on a Wednesday, so that's going to take over our Wednesday episode for that day. But we may, like I said, depending on how it goes, release a couple other special episodes. We may throw in some extra ones, but I think I'm going to try to stick pretty steadily to just the Wednesday episodes for the first little bit. So for at least the first like 3 months, and then we'll see how we go from there. But thank you to everybody who has been listening to the Blackley podcast and everybody who has supported me so far. It's been a great year, and I've enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. And I think I've stuck to it longer than you thought I would with reading.
No comment.
So it's been great. And I've really, really enjoyed it. And I'm excited for everything that's coming up. I'm excited for my book list. I've spent a lot of hours researching and curating and making sure that that I have a good variety of books for 2024. I think there's something there for everyone. And I think it gives, opportunities for anybody to maybe pick one book a month that you want to read along with. If you want to try to hit all 52 with me, that'd be great. If you want to, choose 2 books a month, one every other, whatever it is, set your goal for the year. I think goals are really important, and read along with the Blackley podcast. I'm super excited to be releasing this whole list. And I think, like I said, there's something for everyone. The list goes from The Bodyguard to The Rape of Nanking. Like, dude, there's something for everybody in there. So I'm excited. And thanks for listening this year, 2023, to the Blackley podcast. And make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe if you are listening on YouTube. Like I said, we got a couple baller comments on YouTube today. We got 3 today. Made my day, made me super happy. And so if you want to make my day and make me happy, which is just always good, then go ahead and leave a nice comment on YouTube, or leave us a nice comment on Instagram. Tell Olivia how great she's doing with the gram. Reels will be starting January 1st. Shoot me in the head. And then if you are listening on Apple and Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. I looked the other day. We have like 15-ish reviews.
Oh.
That's pretty good. I don't even
All
think I know.
5 stars?
Yeah. I don't even think I know 15 people. So,
I already said I have 1 friend.
Yeah, you admitted that on the podcast.
Yep.
So that's on the internet. But yeah, thanks to everybody for listening. And we look forward to reading with you next year. See you later.